Thank you for joining us for the NMTC Virtual Water Cooler for August 5th, 2021, where we're going to discuss, is your website sick or healthy? My name is Marco Ciavolino. I do general marketing communications, also develop STEM training materials. The rest of my work includes web development, graphic design, photography, video, and a lot of tech research and development. I'm also the founder of TechBrick Robotics. The word NMTC, people always ask, it's a first century Greek word that states acquisition of property that is then assigned to a non-citizen for management. So in this case, I am your NMTC. I manage assets of my clients on their behalf. So we're going to take a look at 13 areas that I always have to deal with every time I do a project of any kind. And we want to address just the top level issues with each one. And you'll have lots of homework when we're done. So let's start with appearance. Has your website design been updated recently? So here's an early Apple site and one of the early HTML sites that were just all over the place. Obviously, they don't look like that, but some still do. No, you want to design your site to contemporary standards. These are the design trends that pretty much involve all current websites. Very simple structure. All formatting is done with code, not hard HTML. They are dynamic in terms of mobile reformatting for devices. Very few images except for key anchor images. The use of fonts, which is now possible through Google Fonts and other tools. Some animation, not a lot, just some. Cool icons or other kinds of identifying pieces. Careful use of colors. And really good images and great menus. Now on the right, it says design factoids. Must work on all devices. I repeated that over and over and over again because that is just so important, as we will see later. So let's take a look at the brand new NMTC website that we just launched that is in refinement stage. The entire template contains only 6 very small images, which are the 2 versions of the logo and the 4 social media icons. It does have an animated slider, so when you open the page, there's some activity to catch your eye. And the rest of the site is all done with text and HTML. It also can be entirely adapted to virtually any device size, as you can see on the right. This is the way all websites should work. Now let's talk about passwords, because almost every project I've done, people scramble around trying to find passwords. Do you know the key passwords for your web services, of your web server, your content management system, or your email system for that matter? If not, who does? And how many people have administrative access? You'd be surprised over time how that has expanded. You want to rein that in. And where do you store passwords, and are they strong? So look at the factoids on the right. Still, people are using these popular passwords like log me in and 123456. If you see a 12-character password takes 62 trillion times longer, we use 18-character passwords on all of our servers and systems. The third point just amazes me. 42% of organizations rely on sticky notes for password management. Well, this, of course, opens you up to social hacking, where someone gets on your facility and simply just finds a password. So you really want to pay attention to this. It's a good thing to do globally, particularly in relationship to your web services. Now, you should also check all key emails against haveibeenpawned.com, because I ran John Kasner's email address here. He's on 9 pawned data breaches. Now, it doesn't mean he's compromised, because he may have gone back and changed those passwords, and some of them are old. My email generates about 20 pawned data breaches. But it's a good idea to check and then make sure that you aren't still using the password that you were using when the breach occurred. And you'll be really quite shocked at the stats that are on this site. And if possible, use a third-party authenticator for key accounts. So this is the Google Authenticator that many people use for a number of our key accounts, including our web server, our master email accounts. We put in username and password, then we have to go to our cell phone, get this number, which changes every minute, and then we can get in. Now, this can be compromised by hijacked cell phones and malware. But it's about the best you can do right now. Now let's talk about domains. Domain names are, of course, the gateway to your website globally. I find that most people don't know what domains they own. They don't have all their top-level domains, .com, .net, and .org. They don't have sound-alikes. They don't know where they're registered. I've had clients where I've ended up with domains at 5 or 6 registrars. They don't know who manages the domains or renews them or even who owns them. And they don't know who can make changes. So registrars, as you can see, there's about 100 of those globally and about 1,500 top-level domains. The only ones that really matter for you are com, net, and org. And we'll talk about that on the next couple of slides. So it's important to control your whole domain space. You should own .com, net, and org for all of your key domains, your corporate domain, products, branded names, and so forth. And the reason is you don't want people to camp out on your success. Also, sound-alikes. So one of my current clients, Terry Lakin, when the site was very active, we had about 50 different domain names of possible mispronunciations or misspellings. You can see here's a few of them, but you get the idea. And then alternates or typos, which I did on purpose, by the way. If your site is sitefortowers.com, you also want to have the non-plural and spelled out for with non-plural and sitefortower.com, etc. But you want to have all of those in ComNet and org. So obviously this spools out into a lot of domains, but it protects your space. You don't want a competitor to camp out on your success. Now, if you have multiple domains, we were asked in the webinar, how do you deal with it? Well, you don't have to have multiple websites. You redirect all the alternate domains through your domain registrar or a server configuration. And the key is that they're done with what's called a 301 redirect. And that redirects the search engine without any penalty. It basically says to the search engine, oh, this alternate domain, the authoritative domain is X. And your site should also only resolve to one variation, either www or yourcompany.com. So if you go to NMTC and type in www.nmtc.org, it will respond just to nmtc.org. And again, so the search engines want one domain for your website. Now, here's a good example. For nearly 8 years, from early in the web, 1998 through 2007, somebody owned microsfot.com and drove thousands and maybe millions of dollars of revenue from a misspelling of the word Microsoft. Microsoft acquired it in 2008 and redirected it. So if you do that today, you'll see that it goes right to Microsoft.com. But you don't want this to happen to your company. Now, the problem is if you don't get your domain space and carefully purchase it and manage it, recovering domains is very painful and expensive. So the first step is get out there and register all relevant domains. If someone owns one of your variants and it's not being used, you can often purchase it through a broker. Why a broker? Because they are able to get to the underlying information that you may not be able to see. If someone owns a domain that impacts your company's business, you can file a dispute. And this was created because the courts didn't want to get clogged with literally millions of cases. So you go to the ICANN system and you fill out an application. It's binding arbitration. It starts at about $1,200 and goes up from there. And it's worth doing if you want to recover a domain and you think you have a valid claim for it. Now let's talk about hosting. Again, I frequently come across projects that I inherit where they simply don't know where the site is hosted. They don't know anything about it. They don't know if it's updated. They don't know who has access to it. They don't know what technology is used. And there's no redundancy if necessary. You can see there's over 330,000 web hosting providers. Obviously, that's a wide range of service. GoDaddy is the biggest part of the market, and WordPress is the weapon of choice. The problem is that many of these hugely shared environments have pretty significant performance issues at times. It goes up and down. So it's very critical to know this. And if you have a developer who's hosting it, you want to ask them, where is it hosted? What are the specs and so forth? You just need to know that. And then your content. If you look at the content factoids, 4.66 billion active internet users in the world, that's a lot of people. 1.5 billion websites on the internet are inactive, but that still leaves 200 million active websites and many, many more that are not in the stats. The fact is it's a huge market and people are going to use it to find you and you want to make sure it's up to date. So most people just don't look at this. You need to go through your entire website and make sure everything is up to date in general. Photos, logos, so forth. Is the correct address and phone everywhere it should be? And does everyone who's listed still work there? And have their pictures been updated sometime in the last 10 years? And do you regularly update some content, which is important for search engine optimization? And lastly, have you checked email forms and responses? This is just a place where I find so many problems. Someone sets up a form years ago. No one ever looks at how it works. The response could contain lots of old information. So you really should go through your site, and any place there's form-based email, test it. Make sure you know who's getting the email. Look at the response from it. Make sure you update it, and then everything works. So that is a very, very important thing for you to do. Now, let's talk about 508 compliance. What is this? So it is the ability for a person with disabilities to access your website. The whole group is Section 508, which is a body of laws around technology for for accessibility of all kinds of technology. But take a look at your factoids. There's 7 million people with visual disability. It's the law to create a website that works. And you've got about 20% of people with some kind of disability. So the fact is, if your website is not compliant, you could be open to some liability. Now what's happening is a group of lawyers are going around and suing lots of small and medium companies with relatively small websites saying your site's not compliant. And they're winning small judgments of $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. You don't want to get involved in this. It's sort of a mess for you, as all legal entanglements are. But nonetheless, you can fix this, and it's something you should test, which we'll address in just a minute. Let's talk about mobile compatibility. Your site has to work on mobile and all kinds of devices. So mobile is sort of like the generic thing. And they should dynamically adjust to the receiving platform. If you look at the stats, more than 4 billion mobile internet users globally. Mobile internet makes up more than 50% of all internet traffic, and it's going to grow steadily through 2026, at least projected for the next 5-6 years. And the capability of the devices improves month to month. And so if your site does not work dynamically in mobile views, you need to fix it. So here's a way to test it. In Chromium browsers, which is Chrome and Brave, there's a built-in tool called Lighthouse. So you go to the settings, the triple bar on the upper right, you click Choose More Tools, Developer Tools, and you look for Lighthouse. And you click Generate Report, and there's a mobile view and a desktop view. So again, I took the new NMTC website, and we ran it against that. You can see that the desktop view of this page, great performance, great accessibility standards for 508, great search engine optimization. Best practice is another story. You can never give about 80, but we'll address that another time. Now let's go back and test it in mobile view. So we find in mobile view, our performance is lacking. And if I click on that, it would tell me why. So we're just launched this site. We're going to continue to refine it over the next few weeks. Our accessibility is still great in mobile, and our SEO is great in mobile. So this is a really simple test. I spent about 3 weeks reviewing dozens of online site evaluation tools, and hardly any of them provide any more information than this, and it's free, and I'd encourage you to run it on some of your pages. Now let's talk about server performance. You probably have noticed this, but sort of not entirely been aware of it, but 1 in 4 visitors will abandon a site that takes more than 4 seconds to load. So think about it. When you've hit a site and just sitting there, you just click away from it. And people don't come back to sites that don't work well. And shoppers will go elsewhere. That's why Google and other places and Amazon are so focused on performance. Amazon is just so fast. A 1-second delay reduces customer satisfaction by 16%. Now, I don't care if you just have a little teeny 5-page website. It should load quickly and promptly. And it has a big impact on your search engine optimization. It affects user retention, and you need to take load into consideration. If you have a lot of traffic, you want to make sure the server can accommodate that and not compromise your performance. So I ran some tests again on the new NMTC website. Again, we're refining this. So the first test I ran with no optimization turned on, we got a B from GT Metrics. There's many sites that do this. Performance 83 and so forth. Did a couple more tweaks, a little bit better. Then I did a major tweak, and we got way better. Of course, our goal will be to move this up to A over the next few weeks. But you can see it made a big difference. So it's very important to do that, and I'd encourage, again, for you to test your sites and resolve the open issues. Now let's talk about updates. Take a look to the factoids on the right. In 2003, they found that as attack every 39 seconds on the average web. It's way higher now. And insecure passwords give people great chance of hacking your site. 2019 report found security breaches increased by 67%, 30,000 websites hacked every day. Kaspersky indicates just a huge amount of attack. It's happening everywhere. And they don't really care about NMTC. They don't want to malign John's site. What they do want is access to the server to use it to relay porn or to use for botnet attacks and so forth. So it's really critical that your website code and add-ons are updated regularly, because that's where most of the compromises occur. And do you know who owns the licenses for add-ons? I have so many sites I inherit where it has multiple modules and multiple applications, and nobody knows who owns it, nobody knows who's registered it, and we have to go back and rebuy the licenses. Do you regularly scan your site for hacks? Remember, they're not all visible, but you want to know. And do you do regular compatibility checks, especially for new content? So if you put up a big new section of your website, that needs to be tested to make sure nobody inadvertently used, for instance, a hard-coded HTML table that will not adapt to mobile devices. If you don't do these things, you're opening your door to hackers. It's annoying. You don't want to get a message from someone saying, oh, your website is hacked, right? So important to do these things. I encourage you to do it. So let me just show you NMTC's new website up. In just the first few days, hundreds of intrusion attempts. Another one of my major sites, Associates for Biblical Research, which gets global traffic every day, 600 to 800 visitors, 2,000 plus web page views, thousands of intrusion attempts a day sometimes. And you can see some of the code there, SQL injections, all kinds of crazy things. And you can see the threat map here. It is just amazing how relentless these people are, and you want to protect your website against that. Now let's talk about backups. If you take a look at the factoids, the average ransomware event, $6,500. Average cost of ransomware downtime, $380,000. How do they do it? Spam phishing emails, tricking your employees into clicking on links. Mac OS isn't safe anymore, and a lot of these broad applications are the focus of a huge number of attacks, these software service applications. It's escalating, and you don't want to be a victim of this. So you need to ask, are your web assets backed up periodically? Daily, hopefully. I have some sites that I back up twice daily. But have you tested restoring it? This, of course, is a major issue. People often I have backups, but they've never tried restoring it. And can it be easily moved to another provider? And the question is, why would you want to do that? Well, if your provider goes down, or there's a major outage that lasts more than a few minutes, or you're just not happy with performance, many, many web products, including Squarespace and some other really good products, are not transportable. You can't move them around. Even some WordPress sites are so closely tailored to their hosting environment, you can't move them. So it's something to test. The sites that we develop can be brought back up on any Linux cPanel hosting account pretty much anywhere in the world if I needed to. We maintain a 150-day rolling window of daily backups for all key websites. So most can be fully restored in under 15 minutes. So if John Kasner completely blew up his new website, I could put it back online in under 15 minutes, exactly as it was the day before or the last backup. So it's very important to check into this. You would be surprised how frequently it's not attended to. And then let's look at your search engine presence. So if you're like me, you probably get hundreds of emails and phone calls over the year, people saying, we're going to put you in the top 10, we're going to put you in the top 10, which is sort of illogical because everybody can't be in the top 10. But if you look at the factoids, 93% of all web traffic comes through search engines. For most people, Google is the internet. Google counts for a bulk of all searches, as you know, 2 trillion searches a year. A huge impact on their marketing side, $1 to $8, which is amazing. So you want to be able to be found in the search engines. Now, many of your sites do not require super extensive, expensive tools. You just want to make sure it's configured to do the core SEO assets like Google Sitemaps, Google Analytics, and so forth. Are your key pages properly described? Do they have relevant titles? And can you be found on the main search engines? So let me show you what that means. Here's a little site I built for my wife. We are opening a little free library on August 12th. And I built a small little site. It consists of a couple of pages. I launched it on August 1st. I posted a sitemap to Google and Bing Within 48 hours, I could find it easily with the phrase the B Library Smyrna, which is the city we're in. Within 96 hours, it can be found by just its name. The B Library, number 1 in DuckDuckGo, number 1 in Bing, and number 4 in Google. Now, that's pretty remarkable since that's all I did. But if you can't be found simply by that kind of search and you're just nowhere to be seen, then you need to work on this. And the fixes are not difficult. So let's take a look about social media. Now, a lot of you may not maintain active social media accounts, but if you look at the stats on the right, you probably should. There's 4.4 billion social media users, 5 billion active mobile phone users. The one that astounded me was the fifth point. On an average, 2 hours and 22 minutes of time every day is spent on the internet. Users of age group 16 to 64. Wow. All right. So these are the 5 big social media sites. Even if you're not using them, you should at least have someone set up a placeholder account. So you sort of reserve your name, set up a YouTube account, set up a Twitter account, Facebook, and so forth, and get them locked in to be used forward. But I will say that it's important, if you engage in this, that you really engage in it. You need to do it regularly, daily, weekly. You can't have your last post on Facebook be from, the year 1733. So it's something you got to commit to, both in terms of content and staff. Now let's talk about, finally, corporate ID. Every company has a corporate ID, and it could be planned or deliberate or just totally accidental, and that would be negative. Bottom line, it encompasses everything you do, every shirt you make, every cup, every giveaway. But frequently, almost always, I ask for a company's logos and I get a Word document with a badly scanned logo they've been using for 10 years. At a minimum, you need to make sure that you have vector-based commercial versions of your logos and elements. So here's the NMTC logo. Below, you see it in its vector form, which is just straight mathematical lines. And you also need to know precisely what your colors are. I have frequently gotten logos and other materials from clients with 6 or 7 different blues or 6 or 7 different reds. So here's the NMTC color grid in both hex, RGB, CMYK, and PMS spot colors. And all these colors have been tested for reproducibility in each color model. So, example, you can make super bright colors on your monitor, but they won't print on any kind of printer or silkscreen. So these have been essentially reined in to fit within the gamut of most color production methods. And you need to have alternate approved versions. You don't want people just sort of making them up as they go along, a designer or marketing company. So here's variations that we've done for John over the years. We have the logo with all the mottos, logo no models. We have a black version. We have a horizontal version. We have a version that's in white. And these are all locked down, all vector done, and they're all totally consistent. But also, which people often forget, is you have lots of other elements. Product logos, other kind of identifiers for your services. These are the 7 or 8 icons we designed for the new website. They're all done in Adobe Illustrator. They're all vector-based. We can do anything we want with them going forward. But these should be treated just like logos. You should know where they are. You should know they're in a proper format. Make sure the colors are correct. This slide includes links to lots of the data that I referred to, and I encourage you to get the PowerPoint and take a look. There's lots and lots to read here, and you will learn a lot. So you thought you could take the week off, but you can't. I would really encourage each of you to try to answer these questions. Again, I'm not prescriptive here. I'm descriptive because of time, but I think many of you will understand the things that need to be done. And of course, I can help you with all of this. Just ask. John will forward my email to you, and I would look forward to answering any questions that you may have. So we thank you for watching this. Thank you for those of you who attended the live version, and we'll see you on the web.